Welcome to the R&R Show. Sit back and relax and enjoy the best little sports show ever. I'm your host, Michael Roope, and this is my co-host, William Rumsey. Hello, William.
Howdy.
All right, today we are joined by former Red and World Series champion, 20-game winner, Denny Neagle. Hello, Denny.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Not too bad. Appreciate you joining us today. Let's just kind of jump right in here. What have you been up to these days?
Well, now I'm kind of just relaxing, enjoying the retired life out here in Colorado right now. I actually have a house in Colorado, and I still keep a house back in Maryland, where I'm originally from, to see my family and hang out with them back there. But mainly I'm out in Colorado because I have a 21-year-old son that's kind of bouncing all around the country right now. But then I have 16-year-old boy and girl twins that are technically sophomores in high school, but it's hard to tell with all the remote learning going on these days. Yeah. You can't even tell what grade the kids are in now anymore. But my 16-year-old son is a right-handed pitcher, so I've been coaching him the last couple of years, and just been fun to watch his progress.
Yeah, I did see that on Facebook. It looks like he's, if I'm mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Denny, is he a right-hander?
Yep, right-handed pitcher. I tried to tie his right hand behind his back and make him a lefty, but he just wouldn't listen.
Yeah, now, have you been teaching him about the devastating Neagle changeup?
Oh, yeah, yep. He throws a circle changeup already, too, but I'll tell you what, man, the kid, he only started playing in 2017. You know, I never wanted to force any one of my boys. You know, my oldest is a son also too, but he was into drama and theater and acting and music and all that kind of stuff, whatever, which I loved. I was glad he had that. And then same thing with my younger son. He was really he played piano since he's been 5 years old. He was in all the school plays and everything, and never really showed much of a desire to play he loved sports, but he didn't really, you know, have that desire initiative to play when he was younger. And then all of a sudden we were watching the 2016 World Series with the Cubs, and it was such a fun World Series, and not just the World Series, but the whole playoffs. He was sitting there right next to me watching it and asking all these questions and stuff. And he's one of those kids where anything he does, he kind of immerses himself and throws himself into it, you know, full bore, 100%. So he just started asking about the game and really started studying up on the game. And then all of a sudden that winter, he's like, Dad, I think I want to play this spring. I was like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. We'll have some fun. You know, I didn't think much of it. I figured, you know, maybe he'll play a couple years to finish up high school and stuff, but he's just really taken to it, man. And he had some really natural God-given ability. Already had some, I tell you, I swear to God, I'd love to take a lot of the credit, but the kid already had like some really smooth mechanics without me even having to show him too much. And, you know, I kind of fine-tuned some things here and there and showed him some pointers and stuff, but he's just been off and running with it. And it's, like I said, it's been so much fun to watch his progress the last 2 or 3 years.
Now, did he get a play last year with the pandemic? Did they have a season?
They canceled the high school season, and then we were even worried about, because technically the summer season is supposed to be through the high school the program, whatever, but they even canceled that too. So we kind of, myself and some of the other local coaches in the area, threw a team together last minute and kind of made it a makeshift travel ball team, if you will. And we were fortunate enough that, you know, the only thing we could do was just play tournaments in the Colorado area. We ended up playing one tournament in Arizona, one tournament in Kansas too, whatever, you know. So there was no league. They canceled the regular season, but last minute we were fortunate enough to be able to play in a bunch of tournaments. And then he made a travel ball team in the fall, and that's when they kind of opened up a little bit more. You know, we kind of got that season in right before they started to shut things down again with the pandemic and stuff. So that really paid off for him. He really made some good strides with this past fall team.
How's his hitting? I heard he used to be quite the hitter as well.
Well, not to brag, but I did hit 5 bombs. I did hit 5 bombs with 2 grand slams, you know, in the big league. So there you go. But no, he loves to swing it too. You know, I mean, he plays third base, first base. You know, he's caught a little bit, played some outfield too. I would say now his other primary position is first base, but he's pretty much full bore, wants to be a pitcher and stuff. But he definitely loves to swing it too. He actually switched hits a little bit also too, and got his first knock from the left side this past summer too. So I was really excited about that.
Very cool. Now, I did also see on your Facebook page that you recently got a Harley, gotten back into the riding, huh?
Yeah, man. I bought a Fat Boy off of Mark Wohlers, actually, when we were with the Braves. Yep. He bought one. He used to ride with Jeff Blauser and Mike Bilecki and some of the guys with the Braves. But Mark he was kind of petrified. He'd get on that thing and just look all nervous riding it and stuff, you know. So I ended up buying his like 96 Fat Boys. So it was one of the original Fat Boys. And I had that for about 6 years. And then I sold that to a guy named Gary Bennett, who was one of our catchers with the Rockies, played with the Cardinals, Rockies, a couple other teams. But and then so I went 3 years with that one. Then I ended up getting a custom Bourget. It was called Roger Bourget was on the Biker Build-Off series back on the Discovery Channel back in the day and stuff. So I've had that bike sitting in my garage for the last 5 years and hadn't ridden it once in the last 4 or 5 years. So I was just about to sell it. And then all of a sudden I was like, call it a midlife crisis, but I definitely want to get back into a Harley and get back on a bike again. So I called up the local Harley dealership here and they took it in a trade and ended up getting that new street glide. So I'm excited, man. It's been fun. And my 16-year-old daughter has been riding on the back of it with me, man. I just can't get enough of it. Scares me though, because we get down the highway and she's like, faster.
I love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about your major league playing career. Obviously, right off the bat, you got called up by the Minnesota Twins for a cup of coffee during their World Series run. Tell us a little bit of how about your excitement, getting called up. Were you nervous when you got called up and how that played out?
Oh, yeah. I was, can I cuss on this show? Or
yeah, absolutely. Do it.
I was shitting bricks. There's no question about it, man. Because when I got called up in 91, the Twins were in the middle of the pennant race, and they were in first place at the time. And we were playing the Brewers, who were still in the, they were at AL at that time. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. Because they were in the AL at that time and they were their crosstown rivals and stuff. And it was sold out 52,000 in the Metrodome, first place team. And I got called up for a pitcher named Alan Anderson, left-handed pitcher from the Twins. He had just won the ERA title the year before, had a heck of a year, and just was struggling that year in 91. And so they sent him down and called me up. So, I was already, nobody puts more pressure on me than myself, and so I'm already kind of putting all this pressure, but then now it's first place, playing the Brewers, crosstown rival, everything, 52,000 Metrodome. So, I couldn't believe I even got through the first couple of hitters. I was so nervous. Guys would be lying to you if they tell you that they weren't. But the good thing is that especially the guys that are able to kind of have success and everything. John Smoltz always talks about this, in his broadcasts even now, and stuff. And he's so right. It's the ones that you're able to kind of get that heartbeat under control, calm your nerves, and just remind yourself that, look, it's the same thing I've always done. It's still 90 feet. It's still 60 feet, 6 inches. So for me, that's the way I've always kind of approached the game. So after that first initial shock, and not to mention too, I'm facing Paul Molitor as my first big league hitter, So, I mean, that's no slouch, and he ropes a line drive to left off me to start the game, and so I'm like, oh God, here we go. This is what the big league's all about. But I mean, you talk about an eventful major league debut. So he was my first hitter. He gets a base hit. My first strikeout is Willie Randolph. Ends up becoming a coach with me down the road with the Yankees. So we were joking about that. I give up my first home run, and then I'm winning. I think it was 2-1 in the third or fourth inning. I always forget. It's the third or fourth. I think it's the fourth inning. So I'm pitching pretty good. I'm only giving up one run. Candy Maldonado steps up. Big old right-handed, guy I think he's from the Dominican Republic, and he used to have a lot of power. And I threw an outside fastball, and he crushed it right back up the middle at me. I mean, it was probably, 115 miles an hour at least off the bat, if not faster. So it was coming so quick back in my head. The only thing I could do was hold my arm up to I couldn't, because when I followed through, I was this way. So I couldn't get back to get my glove up. So the only thing I could do was kind of naturally react to defend myself. It hit my elbow and missed like the point of the elbow by like literally centimeters, millimeters. And, first thing I do is I'm looking for the ball to see if I can get the ball. In the Metrodome, the dugouts were like pretty far away from the pitcher's mound. It took like 2 hops and ended up in our dugout. That's how hard it hit off my elbow. So he gets the first base, and now, so now all of a sudden, after like the adrenaline is kicking, wearing off a little bit of the whole play, my elbow my arm just locks up, my hand shaking, and stuff. I thought I threw my first and last pitch, on that same day and stuff. Wow. So I'm walking off the mound, and they're playing the replay on the big old diamond screen, at center field. And all I can hear is 52,000 people going, oh God. It was so gruesome looking. My mom about fainted in the stands, because my mom and dad obviously flew in for my major league debut. And so it was tough, man. But thank God, the orthopedic doctors from the Twins said, if it had hit me like that far, much farther over, it would have hit that point of the elbow, and my elbow probably would have just exploded inside. So, but because it hit just in the right spot, I just had a bad deep bone bruise and only ended up missing, a 15-day DL.
Yeah,
but it was an eventful major league debut.
Yeah, that could have been the beginning and the end of your career. I mean, really, think about it.
Yeah, we might not have been doing this podcast because I wouldn't end up in Cincinnati then.
That's exactly right.
So just to take a step back, so when you got the call up to the majors, was that a phone call from the GM? Did your coach bring you into the office? I've just always been interested in how guys get that notification.
Yep. So my manager in AAA, I was with Portland, the AAA affiliate of the Twins, and we were in Edmonton in the Pacific Coast League. So Edmonton, Canada, small, older ballpark. He calls me in, and Russ Nixon was my manager, and he was an old school guy, former manager of the Braves in the big leagues and stuff. So Russ always he always used to kind of like kind of give it to me a little bit, and stuff, whatever, put me in my place. I was this young guy and stuff, whatever, and he was kind of tough on young guys. So he did the typical call me in like he's going to chew me out about something, and I'm like, crap, what did I do now? I'm like, because he was always busting my chops about something. Yeah. So he calls me in, and I can't remember how he did it, but he definitely set me up, and he's like, son, we got to talk about this issue that's been going on with you, and stuff. And I'm like, God, I swear I'm sitting there going, crap, man, I can't win with this guy, So he plays it just for a couple minutes, and he's like, so really the only thing I know it's going to fix this is if we just ship your ass back up to the big leagues, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, can you say that again? And he's like, you're going to the show, son. The Twins just called. They want you up there, man. You're starting Saturday night against the Brewers. I'm like, holy crap, man. I go, this is not how I thought this conversation was going to go, Russ.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you earned it, son, and he goes, the only reason I've ever been hard on you is because I wanted this day to come for you, and stuff. So back then, obviously no cell phones back in 91, whatever. So they had a payphone right outside there, before the gates open and stuff. So there I am on a payphone calling my dad, bawling my eyes out, telling him his boy just made it to the show. Matter of fact, I think I said something like, hey, Pops, you and Mom have plans Saturday night? You guys do anything? He's like, I don't know. I mean, this is like Tuesday or whatever, And he's like, wait a minute, why? What's going on? Because you got to catch a flight to Minnesota, buddy, or get in the car and start driving now because your son's pitching Saturday night against the Brewers.
That's pretty cool. Now, just to follow up, when you got called up to the Twins there, now you didn't make the World Series roster, but I was always interested. Did you get a World Series ring? Since you were part of the Twins and you had some playing time there.
It's funny. I did not get a ring, and every team is different. That's kind of that's actually an organizational thing that's decided by like the ownership and upper management and stuff. I have no idea how they even go about that. To be honest with you, I didn't even really care at first. I was like, look, I mean, I would have felt kind of weird anyways, not actually being on the roster. You get voted in a playoff share, so I got a little bit of money because I was up 72 days with the team, and that's voted on by the players. Yeah, we handle that, inside. But as far as the rings, like I said, that's kind of decided on by management. And for some reason, that myself and guys like Paul Abbott, who was a right-handed pitcher, played a few years in the big leagues. He was up for like 90 or 100 days and was like 4-2 with a 3.5 ERA. Pedro Munoz was a great hitter that got called up that year. He hit like 315 with like 5 home runs and 35 RBIs. He didn't get a ring. They only gave rings to the guys on the playoff roster. However, got like minor league trainers, like the trainer in rookie ball got a World Series ring. And the reasoning was because, well, they help the players get along that, that are on the roster now and that may, help win the World Series. And I'm like, well, what about Pedro Munoz, who hit, like I said, 5 home runs and 35 RBIs in 315? He didn't help you guys win some games this year too. It was just a little bit.
You should have replayed that line drive you took off.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, man, I honestly really didn't even care that much, and I figured, hopefully I'll have another shot at down the road, which fortunately I did.
Just one little last tidbit about the Twinkies. There, were you in awe when you came up when you saw Kirby Puckett for the first time?
Well, the good thing is with Kirby is that I went to the University of Minnesota. I ended up playing college ball there. And Kirby used to come in the wintertime to work out with all of the baseball team with us. So he used to step in and I used to throw him like live BP in the cage and stuff. And he started hearing about me in college. He's like, Coach Anderson, John Anderson, who's still there like almost 40 years now at the University of Minnesota. Back then he was, pretty fresh. And and we all called him 14 for his number. So Kirby would be like, "Hey, 14, this is that young Frankie Viola Jr. you've been telling me about, right? He got that circle changeup. All right, let me see what this kid's got, man." So, and then I used to play pickup basketball with them too at the University of Minnesota campus, there at Williams Arena and stuff. So I already knew Kirby from my college days, which was nice. Kind of broke the ice a little bit, but don't get me wrong, it's still like, kind of like an eye-opening, shock, all experience, when you have Kirby, especially that year too, because they had Jack Morris, Kirby Puckett, Kent Herbeck, some real Chili Davis. Chili was my guy, man. Chili took me and Scott Erickson, a couple of other young pitchers under his wing. He said, "I always take care of my young pitchers, man, because I know they're going to take care of me also too." Yeah. So he took care of like Chuck Finley when he was in Arizona. Then he took care of like me and Scotty Erickson with the Twins. He was a class act.
We were talking about Jack Morris and Ken Herbeck yesterday. It's just like those names just make us so nostalgic. It's crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So then you were traded to the Pirates for a 20-game winner, John Denny. Were you surprised, taken aback by that? How did that go?
You mean John Smiley, you mean?
Or John Smiley, yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Oh, dude, that was because, I was traded a couple times in my career, but that first one was a complete shock. Again, this was before social media and everything else and stuff. But still, even that kind of trade, that was a pretty big trade. Usually you would start hearing some rumblings. Your agent would give you a call. There'd be something in the news outlets, the media, something on SportsCenter, USA Today Sports, anything. There was nothing. So once again, kind of like the Russ Nixon thing with my manager in AAA, I was a young guy and stuff, whatever. So you're worried about getting in trouble, missing curfew the night before sometimes or something like that. So we're on the backfield and we're doing PFP, pitchers fielding practice. And Tom Kelly, the manager, yells to Dick Sutch, our pitching coach, "Sutch, send me Neagle. I got to talk to him." So, of course, the veteran guys like Jack Morrison, I'm like, "Uh-oh, what'd you get into last night, kid?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I was in bed at 9 o'clock, I swear."
Right.
So Kelly puts his arm around me, starts walking with me and just says, "Son, Mr. McPhail," Andy McPhail, the GM, he said, "Mr. McPhail's just informed me you've been traded to the Pirates." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, son, this is part of the game, and stuff. And, we always said we wouldn't do this, and stuff, because they did the year before during the World Series, like right before the World Series started, there was a huge article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune about, well, we're getting ready for the World Series, but the future also looks bright with the Twins, with young pitchers, Denny Neagle, Pat Mahomes Sr., Willie Banks, and stuff. There's a good core of us young pitchers, Scott Erickson, like I mentioned, who was already up with them. So, and Andy McPhail was quoted as saying that one thing I learned from my dad is you never trade away your good young pitching. So I don't care who you are, whatever, we got a good young core. And then lo and behold, the next spring I get traded. So, that's what Tom Kelly and Andy McPhail both told me. They're like, this goes against what we've been taught to do. We didn't want to have to do this, but we felt like we had one more good run at this. And this 20-game winner became available because the Pirates were that was the beginning of the cost-cutting moves for the Pirates. That year they traded John Smiley. I go there my first year, and after that offseason, Barry Bonds leaves, Andy Van Slyke. No, Andy was still there. I take that back. But Doug Drabeck leaves via free agency. They made like 2 or 3 other trades. So that was the John Smiley trade to get me was kind of like the beginning of the end for the Pirates, of their heydays in the early 90s. But it was an honor to get traded for a 20-game winner too. I mean, that kind of meant a lot and said a lot for me.
For sure. What was Bonds like? Obviously he was coming off his, what was it, second MVP?
Yep. So, what's funny? A lot of people, that's always one of the number one questions you get, as a player is the guys you played with. What was Barry Bonds like? What was Greg Maddux like? What was this guy like and stuff? So when everybody asks me about Barry Bonds, it's tough for me because me personally, I don't have a bad word to say about Barry because he treated me great. Even as I was technically still a rookie in '92. And there was a sports bar called the Clark Bar right across the street from the old Three River Stadium. And John Smiley, Mike LaValliere, and John Cangelosi were all like 3 partners in it, along with this local businessman. So it was literally, you could walk to it right from Three River Stadium. So a bunch of us used to go over there, the veterans and the rookies. And they had this like pool table room in the back, and stuff that if there was a veteran there, that was their room. If they had family in town, they get dibs, obviously. It's kind of like a pecking order and you pay your dues as a rookie. So I remember there was once or twice where Barry went to go use it, whatever, with his family, whoever was in town. And one time it was me and he walked in and I was, getting ready to say, "Oh, hey, Mr. Bonds, Barry, I'll get out of here." And he's like, "No, kid, go ahead, man. You were here, just finish your game, man. We'll just use it after you. Another time, my younger brother, who looks just like me, and Barry used to laugh because sometimes you get him confused with the both of us, or whatever. But one time I was like back talking to the owner, and my brother comes up, and he's like, damn, dude, I thought Barry was going to be pissed at us, and same thing. He walked in, and he's like, no, little Neagle, go ahead, man. You had it first, whatever, man. So, but it was little things like that actually Barry was always good to me. Even after he got, after he signed free agent and left, he always had nothing but the best things to say about me because, I was one of the rare guys that used to go after him a lot. I didn't walk him. I didn't pitch around him. It wasn't my style, and stuff. And it wasn't like I was going to blow him away, but I took pride in, I took pride in challenging guys and going after him, and not getting a free pass and stuff. And he always used to say that. He goes, what I like about you, man? You come after me, you challenge me, man. Unlike some of these other wussies, that won't challenge me and throw me something, whatever. But the side part of that is, the one thing that I struggle with Barry, that I would see is his interaction sometimes with fans. And, sometimes I remember one time, I'll never forget it. We were coming to Cincinnati and with the Pirates to play you guys. And, it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And there's probably 15 people waiting, outside of our bus in front of the hotel, waiting to get an autograph. And, this dad's sitting there with his couple boys, and he's like, Barry, can you sign for my son? He goes, man, what the hell are you doing? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You shouldn't be here with your kids anyways. I'm not signing shit, whatever. And I was like, come on, Barry. It's going to take, 10 seconds out of your life, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that about attacking him because I remember in his prime, they had bases loaded and he was up and they intentionally walked him.
Yep.
I'm like, that was insane to me when they did that.
I think that was Buck Showalter and the Diamondbacks. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You talk about respect, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but as far as a player too, let's face it. It's hard for me to say that I played with or against anybody more talented in the game than him.
Absolutely. Now, after our first couple years with Pitt, things really started to click for you in '95, where you went 13-8 with a 3.43 ERA, and you got your first All-Star nod. How was that? How did you realize that? When did you realize you were going to be an All-Star, and how did you feel about that?
Obviously, that was my breakout year. Things really definitely started to click, and I kind of really started to believe in myself more and stuff. And I think that had a lot to do with it. The mental side, the mental grind of this game, man, is just, you can't, guys really, I think, underestimate it sometimes, and stuff. And so I think that was one of the things that I really started to conquer in my own mind too. I always believed in myself, but I don't care who you are, you're going to have those doubts, and those doubts will creep in. But that year, I finally just said, let's go, man. Come on. You're better than this. I know I've proved it before. I won 20 games in the minor leagues. So I knew in my mind, in my heart of hearts, I could do this. So when everything clicked that year, man, it started rolling for me. It just felt so good. And when I really knew I was going to make the All-Star team I knew because it was the strike shortened year. We finally ended the strike. We missed the playoffs the year before in '94, and then we missed the first month or so of '95. So even at like 6 or 7 wins, it was a really good number for me at that point. So I think I was like 7-2 or something like that, 7-3. So it was right there, but I was going into Montreal to face Pedro Martinez. And 2 things. One, I'm facing Pedro Martinez, which obviously that in itself is going to be a tough battle. But also, too, at that point, for some reason, Montreal was just my kryptonite, man. I just couldn't pitch well there. Every time I got my brains beat in there, whether it was a relief or starting, and it was one of those things that gets in your head. Talk about the mental side again. We're creatures of habit. We believe in superstitions and things like that. And when all of a sudden you have that many bad outings in a certain ballpark, it's like, oh crap, not Montreal again. So and like I said, I knew it was like the bubble start for me. If I had one more really good start, I figured I'd probably make the All-Star team. So I went in, man, and I had one of my best games ever in my career. I ended up throwing a 2-hit shutout, and dealt, and it was almost a no-hitter, actually. I'll never forget because the first hit was David Segui hit like one of those Baltimore choppers, but it was playable for our second baseman, Carlos Garcia, and he kind of bobbled it a little bit. By the time he threw it, David Segui, and he wasn't even a fast runner, beat it by a half step. And then that was the only hit with like 2 outs in the 8th inning.
Oh, wow. Did you throw your hands up in the air and said that was an error?
Oh, my dad taught me long ago never to do that.
Well, now where was the All-Star game that year when you?
That was Texas. Texas, because
Now,
I'll never forget it was so freaking hot, man.
did you get in?
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. I pitched like the 6th inning, and I think we were losing 2-1 at that point. And first batter was Carlos Baerga, and he ends up hitting a double down the right field line off me. A little, kind of almost an accidental excuse. No, he hit it pretty good, but his right-handed, he hit it right down the first baseline. So right away, double. Man on second, nobody out, and I'm like, oh crap, man. This is already, again, it's nerve-wracking. I don't care who you are, the juices are flowing. It's the All-Star game. It's a close game, 6th inning, 2-1. So they pinch run Roberto Alomar, and he proceeds to steal third. So now I got man on third, nobody out. And I'm like, oh my God.
That escalated quick.
But that escalated really quick. But I'm proud to say that, man, I struck out Mo Vaughn. I remember a 3-2 changeup. I got Edgar Martinez, I think, to pop up to short, the infield pop up, and then got Albert Bell to ground out to short to get out of the inning.
Oh, wow.
That is awesome.
All right.
Not to be fanboy, but that's like reliving my childhood, all those names. Baerga.
Oh, my God, dude.
That's wild.
What's funny? I hadn't seen it. I told you my son is such a student of the game. And he loves the history and stuff, but he loves watching his dad's videos and stuff, so he put that on not that long ago. And I hadn't seen that in years. We were watching that inning that I threw with the All-Star game. So it was fun to watch.
Very, very cool.
But I'll never forget, man, the night before, when they have a gala, they always put on this fun thing for all the players. And it's usually has to do with whatever is local in the city where you're playing at. So they rented out all of Six Flags Amusement Park, which is right by the old ballpark in Arlington. Well, no, it was the new, I think it was the new ballpark then. Well, not the newer one that's, that wasn't pretty new. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, it was so hot, and it was even at night, but it was so hot, man. The one image that I always have is seeing Randy Johnson, and with his long hair, holding both of his kids in his arms, walking around the park, and he looks like he's got to have a swimming pool. It was so hot. He's just blown with sweat, man.
Yeah.
So next year, after that, 96, you were dealing again. I think you went 14-6 with a 3 ERA. You got dealt to Atlanta. So it sounds like that you had mentioned before that was kind of Pittsburgh was kind of getting rid of its parts. Did that catch you off guard when you went to Atlanta?
Not that I got traded, but yes, it did kind of catch me off guard and a little bit by surprise that it ended up being the Braves. Yeah. Because number one, they were, we were Pittsburgh. So I jumped like 62 games in the standings because we were like 30 games under 500 and they were like 33 games over 500, and they had like a 9-game lead. So, and what's the one thing you think about with the Braves is their pitching, so you didn't think that they were going to trade for me. The rumor was I was going to like the Mets, the Red Sox, the Indians, and 1 or 2 other teams. So my agent was keeping me up on everything. But the other thing was too, is that this was after the trade deadline because I got traded like August 27th or 28th. So I had to clear waivers. So that's the other thing too. You get traded after the trade deadline, you have to clear waivers. The guy you're getting traded for clears waivers. The good thing is, I had already cleared it because every team does that thing where they send everybody through waivers and then they'll see who gets claimed. And if they get claimed, if the player gets claimed, the one team can pluck them back off and then just nothing happens. Then that means I can't get traded then. So if a team had claimed me, let's say the Red Sox had went ahead and claimed me, the Pirates at that point can then just say, take him, he's yours, which they weren't going to do. They wanted to get something obviously in return for me, and so, but I already cleared waivers. And like I said, it's a common practice. It happens every year in baseball. So, but I still didn't think, I was like, I don't think this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, man, it was the rumor started flying and everything. And the Braves were mentioned, but like I said, I didn't think there was any chance, but Steve Avery was having some heart problems that year. Who's a really good friend of mine. We actually obviously ended up playing together in Cincinnati, but he was really having some shoulder issues that year and stuff, whatever. So they wanted to get that one more guy to kind of like solidify it and make that, another couple push, runs with them and stuff, whatever. So, but the crazy thing about that trade though, too, is that the Braves were in town in Pittsburgh. I pitched against Smoltz the night before, beat him 2-1.
Wow.
And then that night, the next morning, whatever, I got traded. They pulled the trade off. So when you in Pittsburgh, you come down the one tunnel and you go right to the home clubhouse and left to the visiting clubhouse. And that was I literally turned right, to get ready to go to my home clubhouse. And I went, oh crap, that's right, I got to go left. And so So
Well,
I
crazy.
go and
Yeah.
go ahead.
You said that you were, 62 games apart in the same. So started the year with Pittsburgh, that record, and then you end the year in the World Series against the Yankees.
Yes. I mean, just a crazy year, man. Like I said, I mean, I never thought that that's how that season would end up. So to be able to, play in a postseason again, first time since '92, when I was with Pittsburgh and stuff, that was a blast. And to be able to, in the World Series against the Yankees and Yankee Stadium with all that history, probably the only biggest regret, not probably, without a doubt, it's still, one of the biggest regrets, and disappointments I've had in my whole career was end up losing that World Series after being up 2-0, winning those first 2 games in New York, coming home. My game was the infamous game too. I started game 4. We were up 6-3. That's the game that Jim Leyritz hit that 3-run homer off Wohlers in the 8th inning. That, the experts will always second guess because Wohlers threw him a slider. Meanwhile, Jim Leyritz could hit, anybody's fastball. If you threw it, I don't care how hard you threw it. You could throw 110 and Jim Leyritz could hit your fastball.
Yeah.
Well, then after that year, 97 is obviously the best season you had in your career, going 20-5 with a 2.97 ERA. That had to feel really, really good because, 20-game winners are kind of a thing of the past now. So it's obviously got to be an awesome feeling to get a 20-game winning season under your belt.
Oh, man, it was unbelievable, and one of the things, like I was telling you guys earlier, is that, people ask you, how was this guy? How was that guy? And of course, with the Braves, it was inevitable. Guys wanted to know, like I kind of mentioned earlier, what was Greg Maddux like? What was John Smoltz like? What was Tom Glavine? What was it like pitching that rotation? And I, without a doubt, I firmly believe in my heart of hearts, the reason I was able to have that kind of success and win 20 games is because, people used to think it was a lot of pressure to pitch in that rotation with 3 future Hall of Famers. And I said, man, I felt just the opposite. I felt like it was able to elevate my game to another level. And what I always told people was that I compared it to racing in like a 100-yard dash, let's say, and I'm not the most fleet of foot, but this was always a perfect example for me, is that I said, look, if you run in a 100-yard dash and you're running against 3 or 4 other guys that you beat them every time and you're going to beat them every time. Yeah, you're probably going to win the race again, but you're not going to run your best times. Now, if you're running in that race with 3 or 4 guys that are as fast, not faster than you might not win the race, but you're probably going to continually keep putting up your best times in that race. And that's how I felt pitching that rotation night in and night out. You'd sit back and I had the best seat in the house to watch 3 future Hall of Famers work, watch Greg Maddux, so 78 pitch complete games, Tom Glavine get 14 ground ball outs, John Smoltz strike out 15, so then I'm like, well, it's my turn. I don't want to be the low man on the totem pole. So I got to go do my thing now. And that's kind of, how it worked for me. And that's when, having that first full season with them, I feel like I said, in my heart of hearts, that's why I was able to go out and win 20 games because those guys elevated my game to another level that, was just so fun to be able to watch and sit back and happen. But, everything, it was definitely one of those. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, talking about elevating your game, because I really, truly believe maybe the greatest pitching performance you ever had was against the Marlins in the championship series where he had that complete game 4 hitter. I mean, that had to be an unbelievable feeling, the magnitude of the game and you coming away with that kind of a performance.
Well, I got a good story about that one too. Harold Reynolds, been doing, MLB Network now, was with ESPN back then. Great dude. I love Harold.
Yeah.
But after the game, we lost game 3. And so we're down 2-1. And I'm in the locker room and, the guys are all kind of, hanging their heads a little bit, understandably so. We just lost a tough game. But now I'm sitting in the locker room too. And I'm watching Harold Reynolds talk about the preview for game 4 now. And then pitching matchup, Al Leiter against Denny Neagle. And Al Leiter's a great pitcher, phenomenal career, great pitcher. But Al went I think he was 15-10 with a 4.2 ERA that year. And I'm coming off my best season ever, 20-5, and stuff. And Harold's sitting there predicting, the Marlins game 4 win and stuff, whatever, and I'm like, what the heck is this, man? All right, we'll see about that, and honestly, I swear to God, Mike, one thing I tell people too is that I was never a big guy that was I never bragged about my career or my success. And I certainly never was that guy that would be get on my back or I got this, whatever, let's go, But there was 2 times in my career. That was one of them. They both happened that season. That when our strength and conditioning coach, he used to panic, right? Because he was always counting on that playoff share money too, right? Because he always said, because my wife's spending money I don't have, so I need this playoff share and stuff. So I remember we're getting on the bus and everybody's kind of moping their heads, and our strength coach is, oh man, you know, he's mumbling to himself, whatever. So finally I go, and it's okay to cuss, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So finally I go, Frank, shut the fuck up, man. I go, let me tell you something. I got this. And he's like, no, Denny, I know. I go, no, you don't know. I got this. We are not losing this game tomorrow. You hear me? And I go, and that goes for every single one of you, on this bus. And everybody was like chipper, and all the guys were like, oh shit, we got the Neagle back, whatever. And so, sure enough, I'm proud to say that I went out there then, and it's tough because you make a statement like that, whether it's just to your teammates or whatever. Now there's even that more added pressure that you put on yourself. But, I was in a zone that night, man, and I was determined that I was not going to let us lose that game.
Was that strength coach the first person to congratulate you when he came off that field that night?
he about broke my back. He gave me the biggest bear hug, man.
Oh, good stuff. Go ahead, Bill.
So then, 98, many analysts consider the greatest pitching staff ever. So you had Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, Millwood, and you. Obviously, that has to be pretty rewarding when that conversation comes up.
Yeah, I mean, anytime they say, you could be put in a statement of the first pitching staff in 96 years that all 5 of us won 16 or more games, then that's a pretty awesome statement, So I was definitely thrilled to be part of that rotation and honored, I mean, again, as I mentioned to you earlier, it was so, I always felt like I not only was I lucky to play this game, but then to have the best seat in the house to be in a pitching rotation with that, and like you said, you throw Millwood in that mix. I mean, it was pretty incredible. And I know, matter of fact, I was just showing my son again too. We were watching the MLB. The MLB network does the 9 thing, whatever, like the top 9, because they say, well, there's 9 outs and 9 innings. So we do, instead of top 10, we do the top 9. And I think they said they put us at number 2. I can't remember which rotation was number 1.
Wow.
It's like the 20s Yankees or something like that. But yeah, they put the 98 Rays rotation as number 2 best all time. So, awesome. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to be part of.
So Leo Mazzoni was obviously your pitching coach during that. What did he add to your repertoire or your game that you can, that elevated you to where you already were?
Well, one of Leo's big things was he didn't believe in like extreme long tossing and wearing your arm out that way. His thing was we threw back-to-back bullpens, which was kind of unheard of. So, normally as a starter you pitch, the next day is more like you're running and, getting the kinks out, light catch and all that kind of stuff, maybe a little bit of long toss. And then the second day is your bullpen day. And then the next 2 days, just kind of more light catch and arm exercise and all that. Leo, we threw back-to-back bullpens. So the second and third day, we did bullpens. But he always wanted you to throw it like 50, 60%, no more than that. And it was just muscle memory, pain in that outside corner, pound the outside corner. That was one of the things that the Braves in general, between Bobby and Leo both, their philosophy was you are not going to get beat on an inside pitch, because one of the easiest things to do for a hitter is to just drop those hands through, and you can get beat on. I don't care how hard you throw, but the hardest thing to do is to put together 3 or 4 hits in a row on great low and away pitches on the outside corner. And of course, in those days too, we got a few calls also too. But
yeah. Did you ever, get on Leo from Rockin'? Did that ever?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Leo and I had I love the guy, to this day, I mean, as soon as I see him, he's like, there he is, the guy who should have won my 4th Cy Young pitcher, whatever. But we definitely had this love-hate relationship sometimes too, because, sometimes Leo would get like a little carried away with yelling something, whatever. And I remember when I was going for my 15th win, which would have made it, that would have given us the 5 starters with all 5 starters with 15 or more wins. And that would have been like the first time in like 78 years that had happened. And then lo and behold, I ended up getting one more win. And that became the first time that all 5 had 16 or more wins, since like the, 19, at that time it was 98. So it was like the 1902 Cubs or something like that. I can't remember who it was. But when I was going for my 15th win, Leo knew that was a big, feather in his cap also too. Yeah. So he's going nuts, whatever. And I hear him. I'm out in the mound. I remember we were in Arizona, and I throw ball 1. It'd be 2 outs, nobody on, and I throw ball 1, whatever, to the third guy I'm facing. 2 outs, nobody on, mind you. Let's go, come on, because one of his sayings was, "Go strike 1 to make the other things work." So the other game plan that we have in effect, you got to throw strike 1 to make the whole rest of the plan work. So when I throw ball one, whatever, in my first ball count, whatever, let's go, come on, go strike one, I snap the ball back like that. I'm staring at him in the dugout like that, and I'm like doing one of these to him and stuff, whatever. So finally, I get out of the end. I throw like 2 more pitches to get out of it like that. And I can walk in the dugout, he was like, see, it worked, didn't you? I said, you sit your little ass down there in the middle of the dugout like that. Let me do the pitching, man. I remember Maddox and Smoltz were cracking up, man.
Obviously sounds like you guys had a good relationship, the whole pitching staff, and it's pretty notorious where you guys used to go out golfing. Now, did you partake in the golf rounds with those guys?
Oh yeah. That was one of the things I couldn't wait to be a part of when I got traded them, because the stories were legendary about Smoltz and those guys golfing. And Smoltz backs it up, man. I mean, he's a legit scratch golfer. He's ridiculous. The only thing that sucked about that is sometimes I had to break out my checkbook at the end of the rounds because Smoltz loved to gamble on the golf course.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, because Tiger Woods had mentioned John Smoltz as his personal ATM. Were you John's personal ATM?
I was definitely his personal ATM a lot of times. Even and I was a legit 5 or 6 handicap back in those days too. But Smoltz had a way of getting in your head on the golf course and stuff too, man. I had that 6-foot putt to tie the hole, whatever, man. Oh God, I'd much rather face, Barry Bonds in a 3-2 count than sometimes facing that 6-foot putt on a golf course with Smoltz.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead, Buck.
One tidbit: did you throw out the first pitch at Turner Field?
Yes, I did. Yep, that was. Yeah, it just so happened that way because that was the '98 season, and we opened up the first 3 games. I remember in Houston. So I was the fourth starter, usually always time that rotation. So the 4th start happened to be the first game at Turner Field. So I had the honor of throwing the first pitch ever at Turner Field. So that was a thrill.
Very cool. So then after the '98 season, you were traded again to our beloved hometown Reds, Brett Boone. And you came out, acclimated yourself right out of the bat with the Reds. And then I heard you formed a friendship with Mr. Roope.
Well, so
good bunch of dudes in that town.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that '99 Reds. I mean, I'd seen one of your good friends, the Meat Hook, Dimitri Young, had posted on Facebook the other day that the '99 team was the most fun he had ever had as a baseball season. That was a great group of guys. I believe everybody had, obviously a lot of fun on that team.
Without a doubt, man. Anytime people ask me the question of what would you say is either like your favorite team or one of your favorite years to ever play in a game, without a doubt, I don't hesitate to say the '99 Reds, because we just had so much fun, man. And it was such a good camaraderie with, like you said, the Meat Hook, Dimitri Young, my boy Greg Vaughn, who came over also too in the trade that, they got Vaughnie from the Padres, who was coming off a 50 homer season, myself and Michael Tucker come over from the Braves. You already had the good core nucleus of Barry Larkin, the young players of Sean Casey, Aaron Boone, Danny Graves, the closer, Pokey Reese, probably the best defensive second baseman I've ever played with, but just Mike Cameron, Jeffrey Hammond, it goes on. Me and Pete Harnish kind of like took care of the pitching staff. We became the veteran leaders of the staff and used to we made it a point of, we had team dinners every road trip. We had at least one team dinner with the pitching staff, and Greg Vaughn and Barry Larkin would take the hitters out. And sometimes, we'd have a whole team party and stuff. And those are the things that are just so undervalued, man, in a clubhouse, man. It becomes so crazy and so hectic sometimes. And obviously, I think to me, that's one of the toughest things now, dealing with the game today with the stupid pandemic and stuff, I mean, you can't even go out to dinner with your boys, on the road and stuff, whatever, and do those kind of things. I mean, I'm not advocating going out and getting hammered or anything like that too, but going out and having a drink with your boys, man, and stuff, those are the things that brings teams together, man. And you can't say enough about how that bonding comes into play, and then how you guys feed off each other as a team and stuff, so that team came together as well as any team. And, what was so cool too, is because going into that season, I think they had us predicted to finish 4th or 5th in the NL Central that year. Mm-hmm. And so we blew away every expectation that the experts had for us and everything else, because we knew what we had in that locker room. But it was so fun to see it develop over the course of that season.
Yeah, I was, I always wanted to apologize to you because I feel like I was solely responsible for black catting you in '99 because I remember sending you a congratulatory call when you guys went up to Milwaukee to play. I was like, congratulations on winning the division. And because Milwaukee that year was wasn't very good.
No.
And you guys had lost the first two. And I remember looking at Eddie and I said, well, I don't think I should have made that call. But you guys ended up making it to that one game playoff, which didn't end up working out right. But that '99 team was a lot of fun. And not, like you said, not very high expectations, but you guys were at the top of the division, pretty much that whole year. So it was a lot of fun to watch you guys. Now,
yeah, that series in Milwaukee, to be honest with you, that one stung a little bit for me also too, because I pitched the first night and I was on a roll. I was having the best streak of my career. I remember I was blessed. I was fortunate enough to get the pitcher of the month for September/October because that season went into the first week of October. But and so I pitched. I think I threw the first 6 innings and we were winning 4-0 or 5-1 or something like that. And Jack McKeon approached me after the 6th inning and said, "Denny, I kind of want to pull you right now." I was only at 89, 90 pitches. So I obviously certainly could have kept going, but he wanted me to start game one of the playoffs. So he's like, you've been really throwing a ton of innings this last 2 months now. So I feel good about this. And our bullpen had been fantastic, So I was like, all right, I kind of like that, Jack. I wouldn't mind, maybe having a little bit of, that little bit of extra rest if you want to, pull me after this one. And then sure enough, we just kind of fell apart in the bullpen that night, just it happens, part of the game and stuff. But I'm like, it's easy to second guess it, in hindsight and everything. But man, I'm like, God dang it. Why didn't I say, but again, that, should have, would have, could have after the fact.
Yeah. Now, how was your relationship with Trader Jack? Did you enjoy him as a coach?
Jack was different.
Yeah.
He was, he, like you said, man, I mean, he's an old school baseball guy and stuff, and I was used to that. I had, like I said, in AAA, I had Russell Nixon, who was an old school guy. Jim Leland, was a good old school guy coming from Bobby Cox. But Jack was just, Jack was probably good at, to be honest with you, I would say that Jack was definitely probably better at more of what you just mentioned, the Trader Jack, the GM side, the making the moves, putting guys in the right situation. I wouldn't say, and this is not a knock on him. I'm not, trust me, I'm not trying to knock on the guy. I'm just saying, for me, I was fortunate enough, as I just mentioned, to play for the likes of Jimmy Leland and Bobby Cox, who were just, to me, masterminds at making the right moves and the right bullpen decisions and stuff like that, And so I wouldn't say that Jack was probably one of the best managers I played for that way, but he was definitely good at just putting in the right pieces at the right time, and stuff, and just kind of letting us play and letting us do our thing.
That's cool.
You got something?
No.
Well, I was going to say, now, how was your relationship with old Leather Pants, Jim Bowden? Marty Brenneman always called him Leather Pants. Did you and him get along?
Don't you wear leather pants?
No, I don't wear leather. No, I don't wear leather pants. But how was your relationship with, Jim Bowden and then also Marty and Joe? Did you get along with those guys?
Oh, I love Marty and Joe. Yep, without a doubt. Yeah, man, love those guys. One of my favorites too was Nuxie, man, because he just called me Left. Hey, Left, I'm like, that's why I call him Left back. What's up, Left?
Oh yeah.
And so he'd always go, "There's one of my favorite guys right there," because I used to crack him up, him and all the equipment staff, Bernie Stowe and Mark Stowe and Senior and stuff, man. I mean, the Rick and Bernie and Mark, those guys, man, that family was just unbelievable at treating us players and stuff. But Jim, I love Jim. I did. We used to have our run-ins, because I was always going to march to my own beat as far as my personality, and stuff. And I was always known as a goofball and prankster and everything else. So Jim, I think I used to get under his skin because he couldn't get to me. Jim had this thing about trying to intimidate, young players and stuff. I'm the GM, Jim Bowden, Mr. Power GM, power broker guy and stuff, whatever. And as you know, Mike, I mean, it's no secret that I used to love to have a cocktail or two, on the days I wasn't pitching. And in spring training, there was a certain establishment called the Cheetah Club down in Sarasota. Yep. That was a ladies' establishment that sometimes a few of those players used to visit on occasion. And Jim had these spies or something out, whatever. He used to like to keep track of everybody. So sure enough, the one time I was there the night before, me and Greg Vaughn were there for an hour having a couple drinks, whatever. And so the next morning in the locker room in front of the whole team, Jim thinks he's going to embarrass me, and he's like, "Hey there, Denny, how was the Cheetah Club last night?" I said, "Oh, it was awesome, Jim." I said, "I thought I was going to see you there. Mercedes was asking about you. She said she misses you." And I swear to God, he was like, and I go, "Yep, you didn't think I was coming back, huh? I'm not used to players saying that back to you."
And that's funny you mentioned that, because I remember you telling me, back in the day that Jim used to always send spies out looking for you guys and stuff. So
Yep.
that's good stuff.
I believe he writes now for The Athletic.
Yep, I think he writes for The Athletic. I know he does. I know you were asking me, Mike, in the one email where we exchanged, leading up to this about fantasy sports and everything too.
He does.
I'm a huge fantasy football nut. I play in like 4 or 5 leagues and stuff. And so I listened to that fantasy sports channel, and I was like, a couple of years ago, I was like, what the heck is Jim Bowden talking about fantasy football? Like he knows about running backs and wide receivers and stuff.
I've read a couple of his articles. He's not bad. He's not a bad writer.
No, he actually, I have to admit, there's been some things I'm like, I definitely agree with what he just said right there.
Yeah. Now talk a little bit about, the Reds. You got off into the next year in 2000. Unbelievable start. I thought you were going to be a 20-game winner again in that 2000 season. You got off to an 8-2 start. Now, you were going to become a free agent. Did you think, I think if I'm not mistaken, the Reds kind of tried to lowball offer you, and I think you declined it. And then did you knew that the writing was on the wall that you'd probably be traded?
Well, so I remember I made my last start before the All-Star break, like on Friday night, and since we were in Cincinnati, and I had a really good start, I remember, against the Indians. And then the next day, Jim Bowden called me in his office, and he basically just wanted to get a feeling of where I was at, and if the Reds were going to have a chance to sign me. That's basically what he asked. He's like, "Look, Denny, I kind of need to know. Obviously, you're going to be a free agent, and we definitely don't want to lose you, not get anything in return. So I just kind of want to see where your head's at right now." So I said, "Well, Jim, I'm not going to lie. I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't at least test the free agent market. Yeah. This is probably going to be my one and only time. I was almost going to be a free agent when I got traded from the Pirates to the Braves, but the Braves ended up locking me up in like a 3-year extension. And so that was the contract that was coming up. So long story longer, I said, Jim, so I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely going to test the free agent market. Now, that being said, I'm certainly going to give you guys every chance as well, too. I've loved my time here. I enjoy pitching in Cincinnati. I've met lots of good friends here, i.e. but seriously, and again, like I said, the players and the teammates that I had there, the coaching staff, everything was great. And so he's like, well, so there was never a formal offer, to be honest with you. Okay. They had thrown out some numbers and stuff like that, but they never made me a formal offer. And Jim basically just said, well, that's, I appreciate your honesty, Denny, and just let you know that there's a chance we might have to trade you come the trading deadline, but that won't happen until the trading deadline. Famous last words.
Yeah.
So I leave, go to the All-Star break. I was still married at the time. My wife and I were actually in Beaver Creek, up by Vail, whatever, in Colorado, because we were supposed to open up against the Rockies after the All-Star break. And so I remember I left my phone charging in our condo we were renting, whatever, at the hotel. And I get back in. So we went to lunch and walking around the little shops there in the village and stuff, whatever. And I get back after 2.5 hours, and I had probably 33 missed calls from my agent who was down at the All-Star game in Atlanta that year. And, the first couple calls were, hey, buddy, you need to call me. Hey, man, where are you at? Hey, dude, where are you at? You need to call me. For Christ's sakes, Danny, will you answer your phone? You're about to get traded, man. We need to talk, And so at that point, talk about, remember when I was a little bit shocked that I went to the Braves back in 96, I knew I was getting traded because the rumors were flying the day before. But I still didn't think it was going to happen to the All-Star break. But I was hearing that there was a good chance I might go back to the Braves or the Diamondbacks or the Red Sox again or the Mets. Those are like the 4 teams I kept hearing. So when I finally, my agent finally like, dude, you need to call. So I finally call him. And he's like, well, you got traded. And he's like, where do you think you went? And I'm like, back to the Braves? No. Diamondbacks? And I'm like, that'd be cool. Going with Randy and stuff. We had the same agent. No. And I, of course, say the Red Sox and Mets. No. Dude, where the hell did I go? He goes, where's probably the last team you think you would go to? And I go, the Yankees? And he goes, yep. Because that team had not been thrown out there at all. The Yankees were kind of like, they flew in under the radar. And that's kind of like I'd learned, after the fact, that's sort of like how Brian Cashman and the Yankees like to do business then. They wanted to just kind of swoop in and fly under the radar and get it done at the last minute.
I remember that trade pissed me off.
Oh, dude,
yeah.
Because the thing that cracked me up too is that this is the one thing that I kind of laughed about with Jim. And again, I love Jim. I really do. I think he was a great GM. He's really good at his job. He pulled off some great moves. Look what he did to get us a contender in '99. Yep. And then in 2000, the reason why he said he traded me was, yes, because I was going to be a free agent. But he also said because, look, the chances of us making the playoffs were pretty slim. We were like 2.5 games out of the wild card spot at that point. So, and you had Ken Griffey Jr. was just starting to come on at that time, and stuff his first year with us.
Yep.
So that was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So obviously you go to the Yankees with that loaded team. You've got Clemens, Jeter, Pettit, O'Neill, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, Sada.
Who's who, yeah.
I mean, going to that, what was the difference between going to a team like the Reds, going to the Yankees? Was it, what were the differences?
Well, obviously, the one thing that just jumps out right off the bat is the expectations are just, out of this world. At that time, 2000, let's see, they had already won, 96 and then 98, 99, because that was a three-peat when we won it in 2000. So they'd won 3 out of the last 4 World Series. You've got, like you said, you've got all these superstars. You've got a media and a fan base in New York that just absolutely expects nothing less than another championship. So, you're stepping into a situation where, it's kind of like, to me, it wasn't as foreign, and I still didn't feel as much pressure because I felt like I was already in a situation in Atlanta that was real similar to that. Yeah. Obviously, the media market is just off the charts, completely different. Even as great as we were in Atlanta and the Braves were considered the team of the 90s and stuff, they still only won 1 World Series, which was, kind of a disappointment for that team. But now you're coming to a team that, like I mentioned, that just won 3 out of the last 4 World Series. And the expectations were, again, anything less than another one is a subpar year for this team. So, I definitely felt a little more pressure than I would, let's say pitching for the Braves and stuff, because if for anything else, just the New York media is just crazy and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was, it was a blast. It was fun. I had some serious ups and downs because I started off like gangbusters. My first couple starts, I just, pitched out of this world with them and stuff, and having that Yankee Stadium crowd. They do that roll call, and they don't always do it for starting pitchers. But I remember David Coney even said, because Coney was a great dude, he's like, "Oh, they're going to do it for you, Neagle, because they've already read the stories about your crazy goofy ass." So sure enough, man, I almost forgot because they start doing a Derek Jeter,
yeah,
So now all of a sudden they get, and I heard it, but then now I'm, because it goes on for those first couple of hitters of the first inning, and all of a sudden I realized. Once it got to me, they were still doing it, waiting for me to acknowledge, because you're supposed to like tip your cat, give a wave or something. And so all of a sudden, I think I threw a couple more pitches, but they were still doing Denny Neagle. So finally, I'm like, oh crap, yeah, I tipped my hat.
It's great. I
nuts.
went to a game at Old Yankee Stadium one time, I think back in 2000. You can just feel the history in that place. It's weird. It's
without a doubt.
Feeling.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And just one of the first things I did when I got there was walk out to Monument Park and see the statues of, Ruth and Mantle and DiMaggio and all those, Gehrig. And like you said, the history is just unbelievable. And, of course, I was going to say, of course, me and my goofy self too, I couldn't wait to do one of my first goofy things. So I get there and it's almost, my number was always 15, and Thurman Munson was 15, so the equipment managers are like, so Denny, like, any idea what number you think you want? And I go, well, I think 15 sounds good. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, what? I just start playing dumb, whatever. I go, I start playing the prima donna Blair, I'm like, dude, I got number 15. That's the number I've always had. I'm not selling for anything less. Dude, the equipment manager's like, Bobby, with you? And I'm like, dude, I'm just fucking with you, man. I know what
That's right. That's good stuff.
The one thing I remember about Yankee Stadium, we had seats out in like left center field. You couldn't buy beer out there
because they were worried about people tossing it on somebody.
We got, it was like a 90-degree day. My dad and I were there, and we're like, where can we get beer? It's you can't buy beer if you sit in these seats.
I swear to God, I think that's probably one of the reasons why, because I remember in '96 with the Braves, who was it? One of our backup catcher was warming me up, and in the bullpen, I was getting ready to come in the 8th inning in game 1 and relief just to get some work And as soon as he stood up to get out of the dugout, he got doused with beer. So I think that rule, they put that rule in effect somewhere around that time.
Might be.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about that Subway Series. I mean, that had to be the buildup for that World Series was unmatched. And talk a little bit about when you saw Roger Clemens throw that bat towards Piazza. What were you thinking when that happened?
Well, first thing I was thinking was like, what in the fuck is he doing, man? Are you kidding me? But then you realize that, when you watch the replays even too, I think you see Clemens' mouth even. He goes, I thought it was the ball. He was like an intense dude, man.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you one other quick story about him even too. One of my first week and a half there, my locker was right next to the hallway that led to the showers, right? So I used to hear like Bernie Williams would be playing his, bass guitar or regular guitar in the shower for the acoustics. Yeah. I'd hear this great music coming from there. And I'm like, oh, it's just Bernie sitting on his stool in the middle of the shower, just jamming. So you never knew what you were going to hear. So this day, all of a sudden, this one day, I hear this like grunting, like there's a freaking grizzly bear back there or something, right? I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I go back there, I look, and there's Clemens with his pants down and his undershorts down. So he's exposed, and he's got the tiger balm, the hot stuff, and he's putting it like on his inner thighs and under his balls. I swear to God, dude, you cannot make this shit up. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, oh, kid, this is how I put myself up before the start, man. And I'm like, dude, I just put on some headphones and listen to some good hard rock or some good techno music or something. But hey, man, to each their own, brother.
That's good stuff.
I love it. That is.
Yeah. I didn't know where that story was going to go, though.
So that'll tell you a little bit about how that, now you're talking about the guy that puts tiger balm on his balls before it started. So, he's already kind of heated up, and stuff, and he's an intense guy even without tiger balm, and stuff, whatever. So I think that's what happened. He got caught up in the moment. Plus, they already had that history, leading up to that start too. So he did not intend to throw the bat at the Piazza, and stuff. He just got caught up in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Now talk a little bit of when you guys won that World Series. How was that party? I heard somewhere where maybe you was partying with Mantle and Slash. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, Mickey. I don't think Mickey was in there, but it was at Mickey Mantle's restaurant.
Okay,
right there. His restaurant was right down the street
his restaurant. Okay.
Yeah, Mickey Mantle's restaurant, and it was right down the street from Trump Plaza where I was staying with my wife when I lived in New York.
Okay.
And so a buddy of mine, this guy named Nestor, Nasty Nestor, who does a show out of Baltimore. Matter of fact, I just did his podcast the other day, and we were talking about that. So I went, did a live interview with him at Mickey Mantle's that they had set up. And it just so happened Slash was eating at the restaurant with a couple of buddies of his, and he's a big baseball fan. So he heard I was there. He asked the manager if he could meet me, and stuff. And I'm like, meet me, dude? I want to meet you. Are you kidding me? Cool. I want to hear some freaking Guns N' Roses story, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was a great dude, man. Knowledgeable baseball fan too.
Oh, I would think you guys would get along great. You're a big rock and roll fan too, are you not?
Absolutely, man. Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. So now, after obviously your time with the Yankees, you finally got to your point where you got to do the free agent thing. Obviously, how many teams were in the final running before you made your selection?
So it pretty much came, I was talking to a bunch of teams, and stuff. And, obviously the Reds were still one of them. They were still inquiring. So I think at that point, to be honest with you, I think the Reds did make a formal offer. I honestly don't remember what it was, whatever, but it certainly wasn't close to what I was getting offered from some of the other bigger market teams. Colorado kind of threw me off guard, because I didn't think they would be, a player in that type of market stuff. But at that point, they decided to kind of, change gears and make a push I ended up signing there, but myself and Mike Hampton and a few other big free agent guys. But it came down to, for me personally, it came down to the Rockies, the Dodgers, and the Mets, and the Red Sox. I take that back. But I really didn't want to. I didn't feel like going. I wanted to stay in the National League. I love the National League style of play. I like to hit. More importantly, I like to face a pitcher that's hitting 150 instead of a DH that's hitting 350.
Yeah.
And but honestly, I've always loved the National League style of ball. Even too, I love the fact that you had to make those decisions as far as a manager to pinch hit and when to pull the pitcher and all that kind of stuff and everything. So it pretty much came down to the Rockies, the Mets, in the Dodgers. And at that time too, the Dodgers, one of my good friends is an actor named Jonathan Silverman from Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
He was one of the two. Him and Andrew McCarthy were the ones that pulled Bernie around, and stuff, whatever. And so Johnny and I, we met at the All-Star game in Cleveland, '97. And he's a huge baseball fan. And so we met at the gala the night before, hit it off, and became really good friends and kept in touch over the years. And I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name now, who was the president of the Dodgers at the time. Shoot, I can't believe I don't remember his name. But he was running the Dodgers, but he also, before that, he used to run, because when I met with him, when I took my visit with the Dodgers, he goes, "So Denny, I understand you and Jonathan Silverman are good friends." I'm like, "How'd you know that?" He goes, "Well, I haven't always been a baseball guy. Before this, I used to run a little studio called Warner Brothers. Maybe you've heard of it." And he said, we produced Weekend of Bernie's 1 and 2. So Johnny's a good friend of mine. And so, man, he gave me the whole, red carpet spiel and stuff, saying, "Denny, the way I see it, you're a young, good-looking guy. Hopefully we can lock you up for 4 or 5 years with the Dodgers, maybe even extension after that. And I understand you have some aspirations to possibly do some acting too. With my connections, and stuff in this town, I can slowly see us, putting your foot in the Hollywood door, as you're finishing up your career in baseball and stuff too." So, I mean, dude, I'm like salivating, going, "Oh my God, this guy's saying all the right things." But what he didn't know at that time was I was still married at the time, and my father-in-law, my wife's dad at the time, was suffering from a disease called PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy. Remember the actor Dudley Moore that played Arthur?
Yep.
Yeah.
He was the first celebrity that came out with it. It's a lot like ALS. It's very similar in the ALS family, but a lot harder to diagnose. So she really she didn't want to leave, and he's from Colorado. He lived here. So she wanted to be close to her dad. So my wife, to her credit at the time, was like, "Look, I don't want you to look back 10 years from now and hate me for not signing with the Dodgers or the Mets if that's what you want to do." She goes, "But if you do decide to sign with the Dodgers, why don't you just get like a condo out there, and me and Trey, my oldest, who was like 2 at the time," she goes, "we'll probably just stay back here in Colorado so I can be with my dad." So I'm like, "Oh God, man, I can't do that, and stuff, man." So at that point, I made the decision that the right thing to do is to just sign with Colorado, kind of bite the bullet as far as baseball wise. I knew I was going to have some struggles pitching the year. A lot of guys before and after me have tried it, pitching wise and stuff. It's just a tough place to pitch, but it was one of those things that was the right thing for me to do at the time. I can't complain, honestly. Look, I wish things could have gone different as far as pitching wise, how things turn out in Colorado. I struggle with injuries out here. That was one of the things that Greg Maddux always said about pitching in Colorado. He said, "Look, it's a given that your pitches aren't going to break as much, that the infield's fast, ground balls are going to get through quicker too." Walt Weiss say it was the fastest infield he's ever played on. And then obviously the big elephant in the room, the home runs. If cheap fly balls are home runs in that ballpark a lot of times. So there's a lot of things that go against you. But like Maddux always said, he goes, "What's even worse though is physically it just beats you up." He always used to say, he goes, "Dude, I go in there for one start, those 7 innings, 100 pitches, and it felt like I threw 160 pitches in that ballpark." He said it would affect me for like 2 or 3 starts later sometimes. So you can imagine making 18 or 19 home game starts there a year. It just beats you up.
Yeah, you never hear that. You just always hear about the fly balls and stuff like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the Olympic training site is at Colorado Springs, because if those athletes can train at that altitude, then they're going to be that much better at regular altitude.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm correct on this. I don't think there's been a free agent of name since you and Hampton that have signed with Colorado, have they?
Well, I think they learned their lesson after me and Hampton didn't work out. I remember, dude, one of the funny things, man, I give fans credit, and stuff, man, because they'll come up with some good ones. And Hampton, when he signed, one of the comments he made was, when the media asked him, "Well, Mike, why would you do that? It's going to be tough pitching there." "Well, but the teams, they're making some right moves," which again, we were. He goes, "Plus, Colorado's a beautiful state, stuff. And I've heard they have really good school districts, school systems out there and stuff." So every time we went, man, and once Mike and I were getting our brains beat in at one point, the fans were holding up signs saying, "How those school systems?"
Do you feel bad for some of those pitchers like Marquez right now for Colorado? I mean, he's an unbelievable talent, but some of those numbers are just getting so inflated. But he's a talented pitcher.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's why when you look at some of because every once in a while you have a year, where a guy just does put it all together, and is able to kind of conquer it. But again, it's usually kind of that 1 year albatross type thing, and stuff. Like Ubaldo Jimenez had a great year, threw a no-hitter there and stuff, whatever. But then look what happened to him too, though. Early on in his career, he started suffering through some injuries. Look at Kyle Freeland. Freeman?
Freeland.
Oh gosh, Freeland. Yeah.
Yep.
He had that great year, finished with a sub-3 ERA, like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now he's been battling the injury bug and the confidence and everything and stuff too. It's a huge mountain to climb pitching at this park, man. So I definitely feel for a lot of these young guys that come in here and get drafted by these guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to some fun facts. I know I appreciate all your time. We're just going to do a few fun facts here.
Yep.
I wanted to know on the first one, have you ever been thrown out of a baseball game?
God, you know what's funny? I don't think I ever did in the big leagues. I never got thrown out. I came close a few times, whether it was beanballer incidents or yelling. I had some good, shouting matches with umpires, especially I was always really good. I never used to get into it with umpires when I was pitching. I'd question calls, but I always did the veteran move where I'm like, Bruce Freeman or, hey, Bruce, do you think that pitch might have caught the corner actually? And they knew that I always had a good, reputation with them that way. Cause I didn't want to get squeezed now the rest of the game. So he's like, a lot of times, more times than not, Denny, I might've missed that one. I'll let you know, I'll keep an eye on that low and away for you next time, whatever, but then when I wasn't pitching, oh man, I was the worst sometimes, yelling from the dugout, sticking up for my fellow pitchers and stuff, man. But I never got kicked out. One of my best incidents I ever had was when I was with the Reds, actually. And that 99 season, and it was like September, and we're like, I think at that point we were maybe a game out of first behind the Astros. We're facing the Cardinals in Cincinnati, and I'm up like 3-0 or 3-1 with 2 outs in the 7th inning, and I'm facing Fernando Tatis Sr. And I'm a 1-2 count, 2 outs, nobody on. Like I said, it's like a 2 or 3 run lead. We're in the pennant race, and I hit him on like a 1-2 pitch. He used to lean over, over the plate a lot. So I hit him, and it was a borderline pitch even too. But anyways, obviously I'm not trying to hit the guy. We're in a playoff race. I'm not going to put the close run, on first base or whatever. So I'm pissed off that I hit the guy, and I'm like storming around the mound, just mad at myself. And all of a sudden I turn around, there's Tony La Russa, got his arms crossed, staring at me, trying to eyeball me right in front of home plate because I just hit his guy, right? And I look up and I'm like, the fuck are you looking at? What'd you say to me? I go, you heard me? I go sit your ass back down in the dugout right now. And so the benches come out, man. We're all jawing. It was one of those ones, typical, that just a lot of shoving and pushing and stuff like that. But, the sidebar to that story is Mark Thompson was a pitcher with us to start the year that year, right-handed reliever, starter with the Reds. And then we traded him and released him, and he ended up with the Cardinals. So he's with the Cardinals now. So we win the game. Afterwards, I was already meeting him and Mark McGuire and a couple of guys from St. Louis at Have a Nice Day Cafe, I think.
There you go, yeah.
And Mark comes up to me and he goes, Nags, you'll love this. He goes, I'm getting out of the shower, walking past the coach's office, just drying off, whatever. And he hears, Tom's, come here. It's La Russo. He goes, you play with Neagle, right? He goes, yeah, Skip. It's a good dude. He goes, oh, he's the best, man. You'd love him, Skip. He goes, are you going to see him all? He goes, yeah. Matter of fact, me and Big Mac and a couple of guys are going to meet him for a beer afterwards. He goes, you tell him I fucking love that shit, man. I have a lot more respect for him now.
That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Now let me ask you this. Do you remember the time when you got the mayor, Sean Casey, thrown out of a game?
Oh, my God. I saw him tell that story on like MLB Network or something, I totally forgot about that until he brought it up. And then I go, absolutely. I do. Remember I told you I was bad jawing from the dugout, man.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And how about that? That one of the nicest guy ever to play the game.
Yeah,
I get him tossed.
Wouldn't hurt a fly.
What I know this is a loaded question. What hitter that used to come up to the plate that you just hated pitching against maybe owned you over the years?
I'll tell you what, man. The one guy used to wear me out was Dante Bechet. Dante Bechet, man. He had this thing, where he was, part of that whole Blake Street Bombers, murderous row, whatever you want to call them, from the Rockies back in those days. But Dante had a lot of power. But what he did, he would spread out and then just hold his hands right here and just use his hands. So if I threw him a changeup, he would just flick it off, or just hit a base at the right field. But if I hung something, man, he'd take me deep, and stuff. But he just owned me, man. I had a tough time with him. And then, the other one I didn't even realize, because my again, my son loves watching a bunch of my old games. I have a lot of them saved on his hard drive, and we were watching this one game. I can't remember why we stumbled on this one, but it was with the Reds, and I was facing the Padres, and I was facing Reggie Sanders. And I didn't even realize that Reggie owned me that bad, because at that point, that was like 99. And at that point, he was like 12 for 34 off me with like 5 bombs. So I didn't realize that Reggie had gotten me that good.
Okay, on the flip side of that, what great hitter did you own?
This is one that I will definitely take to my grave and keep telling my grandkids about now. Tony Gwynn was like at one point was like 3 for 33 off me.
Oh,
and
awesome.
They made, and what was really cool was the year, I want to say it was 2000 maybe, or 99, right around that time, 98, 99. Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, and Cal Ripken were all going for 3,000 the same year, right? So Sports Illustrated had this like huge like 12 spread issue on them. And they, it's all about their cool stories and everything and their upbringing and stuff. Well, then the one section they had, though, they had them list their top 3 favorite pitchers that they used to have the most success against, and then their least 3 favorite to face. And Tony Gwynn had Nolan Ryan number 1, Randy Johnson number 2, and Denny Neagle number 3.
That's some good company.
That was pretty cool, man. Every time I'd see him, man, Tony's funny, man, because he talked. You'd never think it, but he talked like a California surfer dude.
He does,
from San Diego.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd be like, man, I hate facing you, Neagle, man. I can't pick up that changeup, man.
Well, so kind of parlaying off of that. So, what was your favorite park to pitch in, and what was your least favorite?
Well, San Diego, probably. I think I had my best career numbers there. I don't remember what my record was, but I want to say my ERA was like a 1.5 or something like that career in San Diego. It's hard not to like the pitch here when every night the temperature is 74 and sunny, and stuff, whatever. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And it just for some reason, kind of like Montreal, the antithesis of that, right away from the get-go, my first few outings, I just had such great success there. So then it just became a comfort zone, and that kind of like warm, fuzzy blanket feeling every time we were going into the pitch in San Diego. So I definitely had great success there. I'd probably, or like I said, early on in my career, Montreal was by far one of the worst places I pitched in. And then as I went along, God, man, it might be Coors Field is right up there.
Yeah,
with
I was going to say, the Coors.
I hate to say it, but it probably is.
Good stuff. Now, as far as pitchers today, who do you think has the best Denny Neagle changeup in today's game?
Man, I'll tell you what. One guy I just absolutely love watching pitch, and I don't necessarily. I mean, his changeup is phenomenal, but one guy I absolutely love to watch is Max Scherzer, because I just love. Yes, he has unbelievable stuff, and that goes without saying. The numbers back it up and everything too. But what I love about him too, man, is that there's one thing that's sabermetrics and all these freaking numbers that they have out there now, and the analysts love to throw out there. One thing that you can't ever put a number on is somebody's guts and their determination and their ferocity, when they're on the mound, especially for a pitcher, and watching him, man, especially with that one brown eye, one blue eye, that's already kind of intimidating enough as it is, but I've become an adopted Washington Nationals fan too. I grew up outside of Baltimore. So my team was the Orioles always forever growing up. But my dad was a huge Washington Senators fan when he was a kid. Okay. He's from the DC area. So he was devastated when the Washington Senators left town, whatever. And so when the Nationals came to town, my dad dropped the Orioles and went to the Nationals. And my brother and I used to give him a lot of crap, whatever, for jumping ship, whatever. Yeah. But Washington is his hometown and everything. And over the last, 5 or 6 years leading up to the World Series and stuff, he kind of converted me and I became a Nationals fan. One of the reasons why was because when they got Scherzer, I just love watching that guy pitch, man. So his changeup is unbelievable.
Yeah. Go ahead, bud.
So as far as baseball and where it's headed, how do you think the game sits now in just this current environment, compared to NFL, NHL, all the different sports? Where do you think baseball sits? I'm a pastime. Now, where do you think it sits?
Yeah, look, I don't think baseball is going to go anywhere. I think, especially because when you look at the comparisons with football and baseball and everything too, at least we don't have to worry about the physical part, with the worries with the concussions and CTEs and all that stuff. So as a sports fan in general, I worry about that kind of stuff with football and hockey and other sports where there is a lot of contact with that combat sports, and stuff. I'm a huge UFC and boxing fan and stuff too. So, that kind of stuff worries you from an individual standpoint in the health of players going forward down the years and stuff. But I do worry about baseball. I worry about, sometimes the direction they go, that they are going, some of the moves they've done. I don't think Rob Manfred has done a great job as commissioner. I'm not a big fan of his. I think we could do a hell of a lot better with somebody else as commissioner.
Yep.
Now that being said, if I were commissioner, I don't know. I don't know if there's, I certainly wouldn't. My feeling is I feel like I'm a kind of a good combination of old school to new school, feeling with. And what I mean by that is I wasn't a big fan of the bat flipping and for a while, Trevor Bauer, you're strutting around the mound and all that kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you. A few years ago, I was like, oh God, man, Bauer kind of needs to just, I'm not sure about him. My son loves him, loves watching his, all of his logs and everything and stuff. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I've become a huge fan of his. Yeah. I love the guy. I think he's great for baseball. I think if hitters can bat flip, on home runs, then why the heck can't, a Trevor Bauer do a Conor McGregor strut around the mound after punching a guy out? I think it's great for baseball. I think if that's going to bring excitement and put more fans and butts in the seats, when hopefully we can have more people in the seats and stuff, whatever, then I'm a big fan of that. Now, the other part of it, the sabermetrics and the spin rates and the launch angles and stuff, I think that has a place in the game. I think just like with anything in life, you have to learn how to adapt and go with things and make adjustments, adapt, overcome, improvise, as Clint Eastwood would say.
Yeah.
But so I think there is a time for that. But again, like I was just saying, the reason why I love a guy like Max Scherzer is because you can't those are intangibles and stuff that you can't put a number on. Yeah. You can't, I don't know how well I would, where I would get drafted in today's game, because I certainly coming out of college, I could hit 89, 90 miles an hour on a gun back in my day, but I was a much better pitcher when I pitched 86 to 88 miles an hour, and spotted the ball where I wanted it to. So, but one thing I knew that nobody could put a number on with me is that I knew I could outgut anybody on the mound. Nobody was going to outgut me. I was going to give it everything I had, no matter what kind of stuff I had that night. And so those are the things that you don't know how much heart a guy has, and that's why I love to see scrappy guys make in this game, because those are the guys that deserve it more than anybody.
Yeah, David Eckstein. I always remember.
Absolutely, man. Scrappy. I love that dude. Yep.
You may have had 300 strikeouts with the emphasis on the launch angle anymore. I mean,
no kidding, man. It's funny. I'm in Facebook groups, whatever, and the MLB alumni, and I'm in a few different baseball groups out there on Facebook and stuff. And it's funny. One of the things you'll see, one of the common ones that some of these baseball junkies, whatever, will pose the question of, do you think Greg Maddux would be as good of a pitcher in today's world, with all this power that the guys have and stuff? Yes. And dude, me and Steve Avery and Kent Merker and some of these guys will chime in going, are you kidding me? His numbers would be even better. He would eat these guys up with all the holes in their swing.
Absolutely. And that's a true story. Now,
those are the only questions I have.
I just had a couple other ones. Obviously you're one of the funny guys of the game. Larry Walker, I know, recently gave you some love on MLB Network, for the Hall of Fame thing they were doing for him and Jeter. Who was maybe someone that you thought was, funny in your eyes as a teammate?
Well, here's one guy that actually I never had the pleasure of playing with, but I know he's because I've hung out with the dude. He used to live in the Denver area and we used to rehab together and stuff. But Ryan Dempster is one of the funniest bastards I've met in the game. He can do, speaking of bastards, I remember he could do Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. He could do that. We used to do the remember in old school, Will Ferrell got hit with the tranquilizer dart, Wait, you're crazy. I like you. Crazy. He used to do that one.
Damn good. And was he better than you? Because that was pretty.
He was even better than me, man. Oh, he was hilarious, dude. God.
You do a Roope impression?
I don't know if he could do that. But so tell me what other couple quick things. Favorite baseball movie all time?
Oh, God, man. That's a tough one. I think it's really tough for me between, because I what's funny? I love the movie For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner,
Yep.
because it was so believable. He was such a believable pitcher in that movie and stuff, because he's a pretty good athlete in his own right. But I would still say, to me, it's a coin flip between Field of Dreams and The Natural.
Okay. All right.
I'd have a tough one to decide between those two.
Do you watch Yellowstone? Speaking of Kevin,
Love it. Love it. Dude,
Great.
my older sister and all her girlfriends want to go out to a dude ranch in Montana because of that show.
Well, listen, you've always been good to me and kind to me. I just wanted to share just a couple quick little fun stories. I remember when I first met you, you didn't really know too much about me, but I remember I was just coming home from college during the summer, and I was working at an H&H Glass block, and you actually – and I didn't tell you where I worked, but you somehow found out where I worked and had Bernie Stowe call my work and say, Denny left some tickets there at the, will call for you. And I was like, wow, Denny's a great guy. It's like, you went out of your way to, obviously give me some tickets. You've been really, really good to me, during your years here at Cincinnati. And I do appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Anytime, man.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Hey, Denny, you've been awesome. I appreciate it. Now, you take care, okay?
All right, guys.
Thanks, Denny.
All right.